Evening. Today, we feel greatly honored to welcome you all to the 9th Vietnam's Conference on Business, Economics and Resources, organized by Ho Chi Minh City Open University and the Research Center in Business, Economics and Resources. The key theme of our VBER conference this year is adapting policies in uncertain world, public health, household welfare, and financial resilience. And the key objective of our VBER2025 conference is to bring together the academics, practitioners, and policy makers to discuss ongoing research on a wide range of theoretical and empirical issues related to business, economics, and resources. The conference this year featured the following sessions: corporate finance, financial market and bank lending, energy policy and natural resources, inequality, human capital and well-being, household and gender economics, cultural and environmental perception in consuming behavior, greenwashing, green behavior and corporate performance, trade openness, labor productivity and digitalization, carbon pricing, business immersion, and climate-related communications, consumers' perception, green consumption and customer behavior, consumers' need, purchase intention and social media, financial inclusion, saving behaviors and well-being, financial literacy, entrepreneurship and employment engagement. This year, we would like to welcome our four world-class keynote speakers, as well as many other scholars from prestigious international universities. And first of all, we would like to introduce to you the representatives of Ho Chi Minh City Open University. Professor Dr. Minh Hà, President of Ho Chi Minh City Open University. Associate Professor Dr. Vân Thị Hồng Loan, Dean of the School of Advanced Study. Dr. Hồ Hữu Thụy, Dean of Accounting and Auditing from Ho Chi Minh City Open University. And next, we would like to introduce to you our keynote speakers and distinguished guests, Professor Theodore Kochonanu from Singapore Management University, Professor Sanjay Sai from the University of Dundee, the UK, Associate Professor Bạch Ngọc Thắng from the National Economic University, Assistant Professor Lai Hoàng from the University of Western Australia, Associate Professor Nguyễn Văn Phương, VBER Advisor from International University Vietnam National University Ho Chi Minh City, Dr. Từ Thị Kim Thoa, VBER Advisor from University of Economics Ho Chi Minh City. Last but not least, we would like to introduce to you the chair of VBER 2025 conference, Professor Võ Hồng Đức, Head and Executive Director from the Research Center in Business, Economics and Resources. We are delighted to welcome many delegates from national as well as international universities, organizations, and businesses in Ireland, the United Kingdom, Canada, Denmark, Italy, the Netherlands, Australia, Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand, and various universities in Vietnam, including International University, Vietnam National University, Ho Chi Minh City University of Banking, University of Economics, Ho Chi Minh City, Tôn Đức Thắng University, Saigon University, Ho Chi Minh City University of Industry and Trade, Industrial University of Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam Aviation Academy, Ho Chi Minh City University of Economics and Finance, and others. And now, we would like to invite Professor Dr. Nguyễn Minh Hà, President of Ho Chi Minh City Open University, to the stage to give a welcome remark. So please give a big hand to Professor Nguyễn Minh Hà.
Dear distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Vietnam has quietly become the Asian next power, and our university, Ho Chi Minh City Open University, has also been recognized a premier research university in the country. On these recognitions, I warmly welcome you to the Vietnam's Conference on Business, Economics and Resources, VBER2025, organized by our university. This is the ninth VBER conference organized and funded by our university since its first event was held back from November 2017. Ho Chi Minh City Open University is dedicated to promoting a society with active learning by offering the most flexible arrangement to students using the most appropriate and effective education methods. As an applied research university in Vietnam, Ho Chi Minh City Open University has developed a research agenda that aims to introduce empirical and scientific evidence to stimulate and enhance the quality of public debate on policy makers for business, the economy, biotechnology, and science in Vietnam. The university currently offers 33 different study measures and 13 advanced study measures for full-time undergraduate students. Total number of students currently stand at more than 40,000 students, including more than 25,000 full-time and on-campus students. More than 1,200 students are currently enrolled in the 12 different programs for their master's study. The university also has attracted more than 200 scholars to enroll for their PhD degree across 8 study measures in business and economics. The university has ranked in Asia on teaching and learning by the Times Higher Education 2020. For every year, more than 250 academic papers have been published in the international referee journals, which are indexed by the Thomson Reuters Web of Science, ISI, and Elsevier Scopus database. The Journal of Science published by the university includes 7 sub-journals, which focus on various research measures. For business administration to be English literature, these sub-journals are published monthly in both Vietnamese and English versions. The Journal of Science has also been included in the Asian Citation Index, ACI. Ho Chi Minh City Open University was also ranked 16th in Vietnam and 115th in the Southeast Asian region by Web Matrix ranking in 2024. In 2025, based on the UK Times Higher Education, the university is ranked in the 500 to 600 group in Asia and 1,201 and 1,500 group globally and 5th in Vietnam. The university has also been ranked 126 in Southeast Asian regions and 721 to 730 group in Asia by the QS ranking in 2026. Ho Chi Minh City Open University is one of only 11 universities in Vietnam to be ranked by the UK Times Higher Education, the top 6 in Vietnam and in the 1,201 to 1,015 in globally. On behalf of university executive team, I would like to reconfirm the importance of research and my commitment to the support research activity at this university. Research centers such as the Research Center in Business, Economics and Resources, VBER, who runs this VBER conference yearly, has been established to improve and enhance the university research output and quality. Research funding and output has been significantly increased in the past 10 years. At a premier international conference such as this VBER2025 conference is clearly an important event to support the university strategy to be one of the best universities focusing on applied research in Vietnam. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the VBER 2025 conference organizing and scientific committees, which are instrumental in organizing this important event. My special thanks to go to the keynote speaker, Professor Saya Sai from the University of Dundee, the UK, and Professor Dr. Theodore Kojonanu from the Singapore Management University. In particular, I would like to thank Associate Professor Bạch Ngọc Thắng from the National Economics University and Associate Professor Lai Hoàng from the University of Western Australia to share their research journey experience with our Vietnamese young scholars at this VBER 2025 conference. I also would like to thank the presenters for arranging their time and met their way to present their research findings to us. Without them, none of the sessions at the conference would be possible. Finally, I would like to thank you for your attendance and participation and encourage you to make the most by fully engaging in the networking and learning opportunity this VBER 2025 conference presents. Thank you very much. All the best to you.
Thank you so much, Professor Dr. Nguyễn Minh Hà, for your welcome remark. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the VBER 2025 committee, Professor Võ Hồng Đức, Head and Executive Director of the Research Center in Business Economics and Resources, as well as the chair of VBER 2025 conference, would like to give a speech. So please welcome Professor Võ Hồng Đức to the stage.
Good morning, dear Professor Nguyễn Minh Hà, the President of Ho Chi Minh City Open University, dear distinguished guests, all keynote speaker, good morning. Wow, VBER 2025 turned out number 9. Number 9 came from this number 9. And in our Vietnamese culture, number 9 is the best number. It is the number designed for change, the change for good. First of all, I would like to thank and welcome all of you to our 9th VBER conference this year in 2025. As a convention, VBER 2025 brings international scholars from all over the place to come to Vietnam, to come to our university, to come to our beautiful city. And this year, it is no exception. This conference has also received attention from many local universities. The list is long, and I am not going to tell them here, but deep from my heart, I would like to say thank you for your cooperation. On behalf of the Scientific and Organizing Committee, I would like to thank our 4 keynote speakers, from Professor Theo Konchandun from Singaporean Management University, to Professor Sandai Zai from the University of Dundee, the UK, Assistant Professor Lai Hoàng from the University of Western Australia, and Associate Professor Bạch Ngọc Thắng from the National Economics University. Thank you very much for making your time to be here in this morning and in the next 2 days. The VBER 2025 conference this year is a very special one, at least for me. This is the 9th conference in 9 consecutive years. including the 2 years during the COVID-19 back in 2021 and 2022 when the event was held online. I did start the conference 9 years ago as the executive chair. So let I share with you some of the reflection for the first time and also for the last time. I joined the university as the sessional economist back in 2012. 4 years later, the Research Center in Business, Economics and Resources, formerly known as the Business and Economic Research Group, was established in 2016. The first VBER conference, VBER2017, was organized in November 2017 at the Rex Hotel, Ho Chi Minh City. The first academic conference was ever held in the 5-star hotel back then. Over the decade, we have provided direct support to more than 10 Vietnamese scholars who have been offered full scholarship to chase their dreams of completing their PhD studies in Australia, Canada, the UK, the US, and other European and Asian countries. We have published more than 150 academic papers over the decade in international review journals, including the top quality A-star journal. We have also completed more than 20 research projects funded by various government agencies, including this university and Vietnam Ministry of Education and Training. We have also provided countless advice to the government of Ho Chi Minh City on various issues in the last 10 years or so. The figures should stop there, time to move on. This conference is also very special. It was prepared and delivered by the team who are not in Vietnam at this time. The VBER conference was run when the center does not have any full-time staff on campus. So on this reflection, I would like to particularly thank our former staff members. Without them, I'm not sure if we are all here today. So Mr. Hồ Minh Chí, currently at the University of Western Australia, where he is doing his PhD over there. Soon to be Dr. Võ Thế Anh, Concordia University of Montreal in Canada. And my 3 local PhD students, Đinh Thị Huyền Trang, Cao Thị Hà Phương, and Phạm Thế Kỷ. Your dedication and commitment are really appreciated. Clearly, my special thanks is to Professor Nguyễn Minh Hà, who has provided consistent support over the last 5 years or so for this conference. I also owe my special thanks to Dr. Nguyễn Thị Diệu Linh and Mr. Trần Văn Hữu Thanh from the Office of Student Affairs and Communication of Ho Chi Minh City Open University for their support for this VBER 2025 conference. Too many names should be named in my special time, when this is the last time I am the VBER conference chair. I would like to nominate 3 most important names who have unconditionally supported me mentally for the past decade or so to run this conference from 2017 until 2025. Dr. Từ Thị Kim Thoa from University of Economics, Ho Chi Minh City. Associate Professor Văn Thị Hồng Loan from Ho Chi Minh City Open University, and Associate Professor Nguyễn Văn Phương from International University, Vietnam National University, Ho Chi Minh City. You have also been there with me when life has been touched on me. Finally, a message to my most important person of my life. My little daughter, Anna Minh Võ. Surely, Daddy will not be away from home in November 2026 in order to show the special moment when you finish your high school years and start a new chapter of your life at university. So, I wish you an enjoyable experience at VBER 2025 conference and your time in Ho Chi Minh City. Thank you, and see you around.
Thank you so much, Professor Võ Hồng Đức, for your speech. Ladies and gentlemen, and now we would like to invite the four keynote speakers, Professor Sanjay Sai, Professor Dr. Theodore Kochanianu, Associate Professor Bạch Ngọc Thắng, and Assistant Professor Lai Hoàng to the stage to receive flowers and tokens of appreciation from the organizing committee VBER 2025 conference.
Pages turning, but no clear tonight.
We also would like to invite Professor Dr. Nguyễn Minh Hà to the stage to give flowers and tokens of appreciation to our keynote speakers.
Let August stretch beyond the year. With you I have no fear.
And I would like to invite Professor Võ Hồng Đức to the stage for the group photo with Professor Nguyễn Minh Hà together with the four keynote speakers.
Whatever storms may rise outside, I'll be alright
Thank you, Professor Nguyễn Minh Hà and the four keynote speakers.
tonight.
So may I invite Professor Võ Hồng Đức to remain on the stage to continue giving flowers and token of appreciation to our three distinguished guests who has unconditionally supported mentally Professor Võ Hồng Đức for the past decade to run this conference from 2017 until now. And I would like to invite Dr. Từ Thị Kim Thoa, Associate Professor Vân Thị Hồng Loan, and Associate Professor Nguyễn Văn Phương to the stage.
Whatever comes will be just fine. With you, with you, with you tonight. Even if the world disappears, even if tomorrow's unclear, hold me close and don't let go. Tonight, you're all I need to know.
So thank you, Professor Võ Hồng Đức, together with the three distinguished guests.
It's a long, long road we
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we would like to express our sincere thanks to all of the members of the conference organizing committee. Their great contributions plays a significant role in the success of the VBER 2025 conference. And now here comes the most important part of this morning, the plenary session of the first keynote speaker. So I would like to invite Professor Võ Hồng Đức, the chair for this session. So please welcome Professor Võ Hồng Đức to the stage to introduce the first keynote speaker.
Thank you, Dr. Thanh. Just before we run the formal session, can I please invite all of you to come to the stage for the group photo, and then we go into the session. Can you please all come here, please? important person in the room, need to go because you can imagine how busy our president is. So very privileged to welcome here in this morning. So now this is my time to be the chair for the keynote speaker session. So I'd like to start the first one with Professor Dr. Theodore Kongchonadu from Singapore Management University. So Theo work at the intersection between sustainability, geography, finance, and science that have led him to be invited as a member of the European Commission platform for sustainable finance, where he advised the Commission on EU sustainable finance policy and on HM Treasury Green Technological Advisory Group. As part of his outstanding contribution to the EU platform on sustainable finance, he has been appointed as a secretary of the Mining and Extractive Group, which aim to define the sustainability criteria on substantial contribution and do no significant harm for the sector, which will be at the basis of the new EU Commission delegated. He has also been appointed as the lead for the Nature Protection Investment Benchmark proposal of the EU platform on sustainable finance, which will set a minimum benchmark for financial instruments which seek to reduce their biodiversity and nature impact over time. So now I'd like to invite Professor Kongchonadu to the stage. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. A very warm welcome and good morning to everyone. First of all, thank you for the honor that you've made me, Duc, Professor Vo, and also thanks to Professor President Nguyen for the invitation to have me. It's my first time visiting your beautiful country, first time in Ho Chi Minh City, and I must tell you, I'm really impressed about how vibrant this place is, how bustling it is, how I have to duck the scooters every time I try to cross the street. It just speaks to how vibrant the economy is, how fast things are moving, how fast things are, people are learning, but also how the economy is changing. We're going to talk a bit, I would like to talk to you a bit about that today, about how the economy is changing for the better, how we can merge economic objectives with sustainability objectives, particularly on the environmental side, how we can make a contribution to solving the climate change challenges, which we've seen are affecting the world, but also Southeast Asia, Vietnam. We can see it everywhere. So the question is, how can we collectively solve these issues? But before I tell you a bit more about that, kind of get into the technical parts of my keynote, I just wanted to share with you a bit of my journey, a bit who I am, so you understand where my message is coming from, and also how my own professional life was intertwined, I suppose, with Vietnam's in Ho Chi Minh City due to a very special person that I'm going to introduce and maybe embarrass a bit, but I'll tell you a bit about that too. So originally I am Romanian, and my father was an electrical engineer. My mother is a teacher in physics. So when I went to university, I thought, great, that's what I must do. I must be an electrical engineer. But I realized I wanted to work on, I heard about climate change. I heard how important it is. And of course, the energy sector is central to that. But I also understood while trying to be an electrical engineer, I never got to work as one, I realized that the technology itself is not the problem, okay? We know how to manufacture solar panels. We know how to even make electric scooters. We know broadly, by and large, the technological capability is there. The question is how. The question is how do you create the incentives? How do you get the entire economy to align with these types of goals. And that led me really to transition from a, let's say, engineering training to go and do a master's in climate finance. That was then in Edinburgh University. It was the first one in the world in 2009. And then my academic trajectory made me fall in love with data and how we can use data to inform policymakers to work in academia. So a lot of my own joys were about getting new, fresh data and insights to inform decision makers on how to really create these green finance policies and how to get the economy moving. Now, my biggest pleasure was in my actually first year lecturing at the University College Dublin in the Masters in Renewable Energy and Environmental Finance. I had this assignment that I gave to all the students to basically learn Python for environmental finance. So use large-scale data sets to process, to understand how the economy is getting greener or not. And I advise students to take 3 courses to learn Python. And there was one student that took not 3 courses, but 26 courses and basically finished the entire, course that you had to do in a full year in just a few months. And that was Anne, now Dr. Anne Vu. She we worked together at a lot of the contributions that I'm going to present today on environmental finance. We shaped together on our joint research, and she will also present our joint paper later. So today I'm going to take a bit of a top level, explaining you more and talking about this area of green taxonomies. What do we mean by green? And if time permits, but Duke will probably wave at me, I will probably tell you a bit more about nature finance. But if we don't get to the nature finance part, we're going to talk a bit about what do we mean by green. What are these green finance policies? Why do we need them? Why have they been done? And kind of move forward in that direction. Okay, so let's start on a more technical part, but I will need your help, okay? So you will have to help me. I cannot read Vietnamese, so you'll have to tell me what's in the title. Can someone help me?
Okay, so the title is about the decision by our Prime Minister back in 2025, and that regulation is on environmental criteria and the classification of the investment in different green categories.
Yes, so there's a green classification list, okay? If you allow me, okay, I'm just gonna do it. It might not be the best translation, but if I use Google Translate, it looks like this, okay? So if you allow me, thank you, yeah. I did my homework a bit, okay. So it's exciting, right? So you have this interesting policy, right, that just came out called the Green Classification List and this regulation. And what's interesting is that I think in this paragraph here, okay, it says that this decision stipulates the environmental criteria for green projects, okay, to enjoy preferential policies and support from the state on green credit and bonds. And this part is really important, credit and bonds, because it already introduces the financial instrument through which, in this case, right here in Vietnam, but we're going to talk about the world, this is just my introduction, is one of the key mechanisms and key financial instruments through which you can actually incentivize sustainable economic development. So let's put this in a world context. Can I ask a question? How many people knew about the green classification list so far?
Not me.
Not Duke. Anyone else? Okay, so this is good. So we can get to discuss this and maybe unpack it from the ground up, and let's try to understand the rationale of why would a country like to have this type of regulation? Why, right? And there's a good reason for it. So if you're wondering, what is this list? Why do we need this list? Well, the list, if you look into the regulation, and again, excuse Google Translate for inaccuracies, okay? But if you do look into the regulation, it basically gives you all of these technologies that we were talking about, right? So solar, wind energy, biomass, batteries, electric vehicles. But the important part is that it gives you also the environmental criteria that actually make that technology truly sustainable, right? So it's not just, for example, do solar, right? It's also trying to explain the how. So, for example, here, the government is saying, okay, the efficiency is not yet important, but if you look at number 4, for example, and number 3, you must be certified. You must take care of recycling. So you can already see you're trying to match a few more environmental objectives. You're trying to solve climate change on the one side, but you're also putting some little nudges into the system and conditions called do no harm, okay, that are trying to solve other issues, like how does your economy waste, you know, we have a VBER is a resource conference. How do we use our resources wiser, right? It's not just about manufacturing, but manufacturing more efficiently, right? So this list, tangibly, gives you, it's a data dictionary. It just simply gives you this list and the conditions. Now the question is, of course, what do we do with it, right? It's great that we have this list, but it's important to ask, what do we do with it? So just to show you that you're wondering, okay, why did Vietnam do this? Why just here in your own country? And well, the reality is this whole journey started, there's many countries around the world that implemented a green taxonomy. And the whole journey started in 2018 with the European Commission. And they issued the first green taxonomy. And then it permeated all around the world. Brazil now also has their own. Australia, since I know many of you have, including Duke here, you know, is involved in Australia and works in Australia. So Australia has a green taxonomy. And the whole idea is trying to understand how do you get financial markets to contribute. You're trying to get the attention of financial markets to invest into green technologies and green economic development. So in a way, the government does specify the ground rules, but equally is trying to say, hey, banks, hey, bond investors, we would like you to come and invest in these types of technologies. So it's not about just governments doing subsidies on their own, right? It's also about bringing the private sector, and we've been discussing a bit just before the conference that in a lot of countries across Southeast Asia, there is this talk of, okay, how do you encourage more investment into the country, and who comes at the table, how do they get the financing? So just to say, this is all part of a quite big initiative at the world level to try to clarify these types of definitions. So basically what I've said is, at the moment, these policies are data dictionaries. They're trying to provide clarity. So if you're trying to, if I put it in more layman term, if you're trying to reach a weight goal, and I'm trying that at the moment, but I'm really failing, the taxonomy really helps you understand, for example, what kind of food types, exercise routines, but also how much, you know, is good for you. So it's the same for this taxonomy. It's trying to give you the ingredients that you can use in different ways to come up with a delicious green economy, if I may, right? There's just something else to discuss a bit about in this big ecosystem of green finance, okay? On the one hand side, we have, I'm going to explain a bit the European experience, okay? On the one hand side, you have the companies, right? And the reality is, if you just have a list of what's green and what's not, and the question is, well, how do we really encourage capital markets to invest in greenness? How do investors know? Well, the first part is you have to apply it at the project level or at the company level. So you need to ask for data and disclosure so you know where to channel the finance. And in the European Union, we have a regulation called Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, which takes this taxonomy and implements it and asks companies to disclose their data and say, Are you investing in renewable energy? Tell us how much so we can give you money on credit on bond markets and reward you for that, right? So the biggest shift that's happening is by actually having data from the companies, so you have banks stepping in and others to fill that capital gap, okay? So this is the key goal of these taxonomies, to help redirect capital from the current economic model to greener economic model, okay? But there's another angle that we don't discuss a lot, and it's also part of a few regulations around the world, including on the European experience. And this is called here the Sustainable Finance Disclosure Regulation, and it doesn't apply to companies, it applies to investment funds, okay? So basically, if someone comes and say, hey, invest in this financial product, it's green, right? It's not necessarily as big of a problem of redirecting these capital flows, because the capital flows actually happen through the banking system a lot, the banking system and the bond markets. Here we're also talking about equity markets, large scale, quite liquid equity markets. And the question is, are you really selling a financial product that is green, right? And how do I define that? And these are very different objectives. And in the European experience, we've been focused on both, okay? But what we, I think, forgot for a bit is to really sort out the disclosure plus the subsidies to make the green economy profitable. So it's not about just telling me what's green. I also need to know that it makes economic and financial sense so the financial sector and the private sector can come in. Otherwise, it's really hard to build on public goods. But you will see in the regulatory landscape, not yet in Vietnam, but again in Europe, that you also have this part here that is trying to make sure that there's no mis-selling of financial products, okay? And that's quite important. What's the big innovation? Can I ask how many accounting scholars are here? Any accounting scholars? Yes? Jim, thank you. We have Jim. So it's not just about, how many finance scholars we have? Finance? Yeah? A few shy hands. It's okay. It's okay. Some people don't want to admit it. I'm a finance scholar as well. So really the big innovation is the following. Previously, when we talked about a company, right, let's say Grab, if we look at Grab, right, and say how green is Grab, right, you often look at the company level, like the entire company, and sometimes it's a bit hard to tell that because they also have data centers, right? Grab might also, they have the food deliveries, you have the scooters, and the scooters are quite different from the cars and so on. So how sustainable the whole company is a bit hard to tell, right? But what you can do is to try to split the company into very different economic activities, right? So you can look even on the Grab app and choose the different thing that you can choose. You can basically split them in their own distinct economic activities that have their own, let's say, CapEx and OpEx. Of course, Grab overall is a software platform, so it's kind of one big thing, but within it, there are many different economic activities that it enables, right? So what's really important is that taxonomies have allowed us to break down companies that have multiple economic activities and say how sustainable they are in each of these economic activities. So it's not about saying you're a big sustainable company, but you're a company that does sustainable things, okay, which are quite different ways to look at it. And the way you do this is through splitting, for example, CapEx, where you understand where the company is investing, OpEx, to understand the cost structure of the company, and the revenue structure. Now, if I were to ask you, how do we judge what's the best metric to see if the company is going in the right direction, right? So the direction of travel. Which one is better? Is it, if I'm trying to say this company in 5 years will be more sustainable, which of these indicators will give you a better assessment. Let's do a little survey. How many people think it's a revenue is the best indicator? Oh, nobody. Oh, one person. Maybe two, someone shy, or just touching his chin. Okay. How many people think it's CapEx? Okay, we have a majority so far, about 10 people. How many people think it's OpEx? Okay, so CapEx, right? This is a really important one because we don't have, technically this data dictionary is a definition of green CapEx. The company is telling you, this is how much money I'm putting this year in these technologies. These technologies may not necessarily generate a revenue yet, but they probably will in the future. So if you're putting, if you're building a large solar facility, it might take you about 5 years, but then every year the company is telling you, this year I've put, 1 billion, the next year I'm putting 2, and so on. You can actually track the progress. So you don't have to rely on companies promising you, I will do stuff, right? So a lot of the sustainability disclosure is about, I promise you, I will be net zero by 2050, right? This is a more technical way to look at the problem and say, okay, if you're going to do that, show me the financial pathway through which you're operationalizing this climate change plan, okay? And it's happening through, as you've all kind of said, through the CapEx disclosure. In the same way, when a company goes to a bank, right, and you're trying to get a loan, what does the bank say? What are you going to do with it, right? What's the use of proceeds? And that's where the company can say, well, here's my CapEx plan. I need this much money to develop in this way. And so the bank can assess the, let's say, greenness of this transition. They can use these data dictionaries, right, and start together with state aid and other instruments, you can start shifting the economy in the right direction at a quite deep technical level. Okay? So let me show you how the figures look like in Europe. The reason it's interesting in Europe is because Europe is the only one so far that has public disclosure. So us companies actually tell us how much CapEx, OpEx, and revenue you are generated for, particularly for the large listed companies. We don't have that much good data on the SMEs yet, and SMEs tend to be much more focused on one economic activity. But basically, you will see on the left, as you would have imagined, the utilities sector, for example, is leading because this is technically our electricity sector usually falls in the utilities one. So a lot of the renewable energy falls in there, and over 60% of all the capex, okay, in the European Union by these listed companies is now green, on average green capex, which I think it is a substantial shift, right? It already tells us where it's going. On the revenue side, it's a bit less. It's just under 40, and you see many. Even in the energy sector, you have about 20% of revenues. So revenues tell you a story about the present, right? It tells us at present, we don't have that many companies that are selling us green goods and services according to this taxonomy. But because the CapEx structure, the spending for the future economic activities is a bit higher than this, and in some proportions goes quite high, it means that we are much more likely and have more certainty that the trajectory is towards sustainability. And I'm just going to make this point again because it's an important innovation in the way we look at companies. And I think this is a really important one conceptually and also from a scholarly perspective. Let's take an energy company, right? So if an energy company builds a wind energy generation, right? You can see the capex and you can say it's green. Then you have OpEx for operating it. But because then you sell your electricity, you can sell that you have green revenue as well, right? But you don't have to be an energy company to do renewable energy, right? Everyone in the entire economy can focus on renewable energy. So you can be a mining company, right? You can be Grab and you can power your own data centers. You can be anyone to do renewable energy. That means you can still be rewarded by your bank for your capex, but because you're not an electricity company, you might use the electricity for yourself. You're not going to have any revenue, right? But the important part is you can still reward companies for capex. You can still reward and bring private sector in for economic development and for the investment, right? Who generates the revenue and who buys it, it's in a way secondary to this question, because you already have your investment in your green technology, right? If a big company uses the electricity for itself or sells it into the grid, that's a bit of a different discussion. And let me show you how it looks like in an annual report, right? So I know the UK exited the European Union, but because it actually sells a lot of products and services to the European Union, they still have to report. So this is National Grid. This is the UK's technically electricity company, the part of the national infrastructure. They're telling us how they're splitting their capex across different economic activities. So instead of saying this company is green, actually I'm going to say, well, they invested in distribution, in transmission, they're interested in methane leakage, and they do a bit of electricity production, but mostly you see it gives you a good idea where the company is focused in terms of their sustainability spending, okay? So this is how, in essence, this disclosure plays out at this sort of level of granularity. And this is just some insight to show you that we took data around the world on who puts money into renewable energy, okay? And we want to show you that it's not just the electricity sector. Of course, the electricity sector accounts for most of it. You actually have banks doing a lot of deals and owning renewable energy. You have manufacturing companies that are putting renewable energy. You have construction companies that are doing renewable energy. You even have some oil and gas companies. Oil and gas companies are not doing that much renewable energy, but they tell us they do a lot of renewable energy. That also happens, okay? But the point is this: you can have green economic activities that are sector agnostic. They just permeate the entire economy, okay? So if you have your mobiles, you can check the website with the QR code. So I'm just gonna, for the next 5 minutes, since I know Duke will probably want to move on, and we'll be on time actually, you know, we'll finish at 10. I will present to you this research initiative, and this is an open invitation to you. So we're going to talk about this Sustainable Finance Taxonomy Mapper, which we're doing it, Anne and I are co-leading it, also with Andreas and Fabiola from University College Dublin. And we're trying to understand, I showed you that big map in the beginning with all the taxonomies around the world. We're trying to understand how different are these definitions of greenness across the world. So we know Vietnam has a green taxonomy, Singapore has one, there's the ASEAN green taxonomy. If you're a company that is trying to invest across Southeast Asia, how are you going to navigate the different definitions of green capex? And we're trying to build this database for researchers and for policymakers to understand how that is done. So let me show you how that looks like. So if you are interested in integrating the Vietnamese taxonomy in this tool, please let us know, because we haven't done that yet, and we're planning to do that in the next 3 to 4 months. So if there are any researchers that are interested in doing research on green taxonomies, we would gladly have you work with us to integrate it into our tool, so Vietnam is also represented. At the moment, we have Brazil, China, Indonesia, Mongolia, Rwanda, South Africa, Thailand, and the European Union. And again, the goal is to understand interoperability. It's not about saying who's more ambitious than who. It's just simply understanding. We're just trying to map to say, what are you doing, and how different it is, and how interoperable it is. Because if Singapore has one type of criteria and then Vietnam has another one, then it's a bit harder for companies to navigate the space. And ideally, we can get, you do have some conversions across with the ASEAN taxonomy, but we can foster these discussions of interoperability across the region, okay? So this is these are the jurisdictions we currently cover, and ideally we will have the whole world by the end of next year. So let me show you how it looks like. Technically, we are able to map side by side these taxonomies, so these legislative acts across all jurisdictions, and you can understand how they're designed, whether they're focused on climate change mitigation or climate adaptation or resource circularity, and what kind of indicators they require. And then we also do this economic activity mapping. So if you were wondering, is the definition of solar energy, sustainable solar energy in Vietnam the same as Singapore, the same as ASEAN, the same as Indonesia and EU? We're trying to put all of these definitions side by side so people can check and you can do research on it. So if you're trying to do comparative evidence on, let's say, Vietnam and other countries, you should be able to do it from here. And would love to build this evidence base together. And of course, An will be leading the Vietnam research, and ideally we'll have people here supporting that endeavor. Okay, so in the interest of time, I will probably, so we keep the conference on time, I will probably stop here and say that it's a big privilege for me to be here to present this research program to you, and my personal goal, again, moving, maybe I can conclude, you might be wondering, why does this random Romanian person decide to come to Singapore all the way from Scotland? And the reality is, professionally and personally for me, whenever we talk about sustainability, of course, Europe can have its own views and values on how you drive sustainability and sustainable development forward. I think it's really important to understand every region. I am a geographer at heart. My PhD was in geography. So for me, it was really important to come and learn as much as I came to teach in the university. I'm actually here to immerse ourselves, to learn, and with some of the good practices that we've learned in Europe, to the degree to which they apply to the region, work towards financial sector integration and green economic development, and just understand together, from a technical perspective, what can we do to help the economy go forward. So with that, thank you so much for your attention. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Theo. You make my job at the chair of the session much easier. Okay, so now we will have 15 minutes for break. And I assume that food and drink are somewhere in the room next door. So all of you are invited to join us there. So please.